want to publish the same circuit in a test book, it has to be incorporated without mathematical analysis. It is impossible. Any control circuit, or simple, if you take any function generator or a waveform generator, if you design a new circuit, if it is better than the existing one, then you have to give how this frequency can be varied, which parameter has to be varied. Finally, you have to find an expression for tuning of the frequency. So mathematics is the backbone of engineering, all the branches. Without mathematics, there is no engineering. It is like a railway parallel track. So this is the importance. So that's why in engineering, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, in some of the primary institutions, mathematics 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 subjects are there. So this is the main importance of the mathematics in engineering.
Everybody, every individual come to this world with a particular attitude. His station in a society is determined by his aptitude. So just by performing his own specific duties, appropriate to his station in a society, he can do a lot of good to the society and also realize his infinite self. This audience also have a mixture of students and faculty. So faculty members, by now they all know very well that the main object of teaching is not to explain things, but only to knock at the minds of the door. Our speaker, who is a renowned mathematician, has come here just to do that only. Although we know that a good teacher explains and demonstrates, but what is very important of a teacher is he should be always vigilant of keeping his students' body and soul as well as his together. That's a very big task, and that he can achieve provided the students or the participants or the faculty, on the other hand, who are receiving the knowledge from him for the next 3 days, also must shun 3 important vices, namely Kama, Krodha and Lobh. And these are the things which really diverts our attention from acquiring the expertise from the expert speaker. This is very important. So this is what actually the essence of Lord's song. There are many more such essence, but for this forum, I think this is the essence. And then now coming back to the central theme of this workshop, the speaker is going to address you on 2 branches of mathematics. One is graph theory and the another is on number theory. Gone are the days where even some of the mathematicians, even people belong to the mathematics faculty, used to think, this is about 100 years back, I think, that graph theory is only that branch, small part of that branch of mathematics called discrete mathematics, which do not have much importance, and it is occasionally used for solving some problems in mathematical Olympiads. But this is not true. This is not true at all, and it has been established. And this thinking alone has posed a lot of challenge for those who have the most deep love for the subject called graph theory. And because of the efforts of so many truly loving people of graph theory, the subject has established itself very strongly, and it has proved those thinkings wrong, that it has very few connections with the deeper areas of mathematics.
I now request Dean of Engineering and Management, Dr. V. Madhusudan Rao.
So for 2 years they conducted at Infosys campus. All the research they used to go there, all the participants they used to go there, and they used to stay there for, depending on the quantum of the workshop, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, like that. At a time, nearly 200 to 300 people who used to stay on one campus. That's what. So later, so instead of going all of us to one place, left it to be distributed all over the country. So that Krishna Vedula came with a concept, if any institution you want to conduct a workshop, they can conduct at their own place. So that concept came into mind in the year 2008. Till 2007 they were conducting there only. So then asked us the institutions to become members, the consortium members. So all over India, nearly 20 or 25 institutions became members. They are permitted to conduct workshops on behalf of IUC. I think here at Vignan University, it is now, I think now 7th or 8th workshop we are conducting. All engineering branches are conducted already. Chemical engineering, electronic engineering, computer science, electrical, mechanical, all of them are conducted. So this is the 8th or 9th workshop, that kind we are conducting here. Okay? So with the help of, now even IUC is also exclusively conducting workshops for other, not only in the technology side, even other sides also. Because basic aim of this IUC is how can we improve the standards of engineering education in India. That's what.
I now request Head of the Department, Humanities and Sciences, Dr. N. Srinivasu.
I would like to welcome to this workshop IUCC on graph theory and number theory. And this is very useful. I already informed the various departments of engineering faculty also, but they are in invigilation, most of the faculty. That's why they are not present for the inauguration. And some of the head of the departments, they say that it is very important for us, but at the moment we are not able to come, but we can attend the conference workshop later on.
I now request Registrar Dr. M.S. Raghunathan to address the gathering.
IUCEE is dominated by 5 different factors. The first and the foremost is the faculty development. The second is the student development. The third is the curriculum development. The fourth is improving the teaching technologies. And the fifth one is the research. So you have an aim of Indo-US collaboration for engineering education with the broad aim of improving the quality of engineering education in India with these 5 thrust areas. So when this proposal was put up by the Honorable Dean Foreign Collaboration, supported ably by the Department of Sciences and Humanities, we were very jubilant because this is not a normal run-of-the-mill workshop. It is a unique interaction between the resource persons under the umbrella of IUCEE. We are fortunate to have Professor Ashish Srivastava from the University of Missouri, from the University of St. Louis, Missouri, to come and spend valuable time with us. So the befitting tribute for this kind of workshop is to have a audience-packed hall.
I now request Vice Chancellor Dr. Purushottam
to just recall how the human civilization has progressed in every part of the life. It is based, the progress is based on the contributions from mathematics subject. Long years back, many centuries back, people observed phenomenon. There is some kind of phenomenon in the nature, like the arrangement of the seeds in the sunflower. There is a particular phenomenon. The layers in the conch shell, there is a particular phenomena in that. The seed pattern in the maize cob, there is a phenomenon in that. There is a phenomenon in the lion's roar, the start, the pitch and the end. And similarly the dolphins. So every creature, it behaves with a set of phenomena, and there is a mathematical explanation to that.
Working as an assistant professor of mathematics and computer science at St. Louis University, USA. Coming to his educational qualifications, he completed his master's in the field of mathematics and computer applications in 2001 and 2003 at IIT Delhi. He received his doctorate of philosophy in mathematics from Ohio University, USA. Dr. Ashish K. Srivastava is a renowned algebraist, and his research interest includes the study of non-commutative rings characterized by homological properties of modules and elements in rings.
Being a mathematician, I'm not very good with the general talk. So I see graph theory really as a language. given any problem which is combinatorial in nature, one can rephrase the question in graph theoretic language, and then it is easier to visualize that, and then one can solve the problem, right? So given any a real life situation, one can cleverly rephrase the practical situation in some terms in nodes and edges and so on, and that's where the graph theory comes in picture, right? So it has immense applications in network security, communications, information retrieval, decision making, and so on. So we'll talk about a few aspects of such things. Suppose there are 6 persons in a party, right? Is it necessarily true that at least 3 of them will be mutual friends, or at least 3 of them will be mutual strangers? Okay. What I mean by mutual friend is that if there are 3 persons, say A, B, and C, A and B are friends, B and C are friends, A and C are friends, right? If that's the situation, we'll say A, B, C are mutual friends. If A and B do not know each other, B and C do not know each other, A and C do not know each other, we'll say A, B, and C are mutual strangers, right? So, given any 6 random persons in a party, is it true, necessarily true, that you'll have at least 3 mutual friends or 3 mutual strangers? Now, if you look at the problem, there is no graph theory, at least in the way problem is phrased, right? So, any ideas? Maybe let's hear from students. Do you believe it that if you have 6 persons, you'll definitely have at least 3 mutual friends or 3 mutual strangers? Or at least 3 of them are mutual strangers? Huh? Is it necessarily true? That's the question. And if so, you're saying it is not necessarily true?
It is necessary, but we are not sure.
Anyone? Huh? What? And speak a little louder so that I hear what you're saying. Suppose I give you just 5 people, right? And it may happen that A and B are friends, A and C do not know each other. Maybe A and B are friends, and so on. So there are some combination, and one can say maybe there are no 3 persons who are friends of each other, no 3 persons who are. So now I'm asking the question about 6 because there is something about 6 maybe what I'm heading towards. So I'm still not sure whether you're getting the problem. The problem is that there are 6 persons. Now between any 2 persons there will be one of the relations. They will be either friends or they will not know each other. They will be strangers. Right? The question is it guaranteed that one of the following 2 situations will definitely arise? There are at least 3 people who are friends of each other. There will be at least 3 people who are, or there will be at least 3 people who will be mutual strangers. Now if you are having, and it seems you are having some difficulty seeing this, let me ask, and that will justify why I should spend some time teaching you graph theory. Let me ask a different question. Now this time the question is, suppose I give you 6 points. Okay. And I ask you to join every point with rest of the other points using markers of 2 colors, black and green, because that's what I have here. Right? Is it possible to give colors to these lines that I'm drawing in such a way that you can avoid having a black triangle or a green triangle? So my challenge to you is, no matter how you color the lines, you will always end up getting a triangle of same color. Now if you're not convinced, try yourself. From every point you have to draw lines to every other point. Now since you are maybe working with just one pen, you can draw solid lines and dotted lines, right? So then you can forget about colors. So then my challenge is, no matter how hard you try, you will always get either a solid triangle or a dotted triangle. With common sense, I must draw at least 3 lines of same color. That's what we call pigeonhole principle in mathematics, in combinatorics. But it's really common sense that if I'm given 5 objects, right, and I have 2 boxes, and I'm trying to put those 5 boxes in 2 boxes, I must place at least 3 objects in same box, right? Common sense, because if I put 2 at most in both, then I can cover at least at most only 4 things, right? So out of these 5 lines, at least 3 must be of same color. So without any loss of generality, let's say these 3 lines are black, right? And there is nothing great about these 3 lines. I could choose any 3 lines and I will play the same game. Now look at these 3 points. If any of them is connected by a black line, then I'm done. I have a black triangle, right? If this was black, then we're done. We have a black triangle, right? So when I say a graph, I mean a set of vertices and a set of edges, right? For the set of vertices, I will denote by this symbol V of G, and set of edges, right? So if you have these points, you call them vertices, and these lines, you will call them edges, right? Now one can think of an edge connecting a vertex to itself, right? Those kind of edges are called loops. But here in this course, I don't want loops. So when I say a graph, that means I'm not having this kind of situation, okay? So we'll not allow loops. There will be vertices and edges. Any edge will be from one vertex to a different vertex. And we will consider finite graphs, right? So finite graph means the number of vertices and the number of edges will be finite. Of course, since I'm not considering loops, once you have the finite number of vertices, the number of edges has to be finite. Now, infinite graphs have their own importance. A lot of people these days are studying infinite graphs. People working in path algebras, Leavitt path algebras, expander graphs, they have their own interest in infinite graphs. But for this workshop, when I talk about a graph, that means it's a finite graph. It does not have loops. So finite number of vertices, finite number of edges. Now, the number of edges incident on any vertex, we'll call that degree of that vertex. Okay? Degree of a vertex V, will denote this by symbol S, right? That will mean the number of edges incident on one V. So the number of edges connected through that vertex, right? That will be degree. Now, one can ask the following question: if I take degrees of all the vertices in a graph, right? And I sum them. Okay. So look at every vertex, compute its degree, and sum those numbers, right? What connection will this have with any of these things? Twice the number of edges, right? And that's quite clear, right? In fact, we call it handshaking lemma. For obvious reasons. You may wonder what's the connection of this to handshaking. Why are we calling handshaking lemma? You see, when a handshake takes place, there are always two persons involved, right? Same thing here. When you have an edge, there are two vertices, right? The two endpoints. So when you are counting the degree, it contributes to degrees of two vertices, right? And that's why when you sum this, it's not surprising that this will turn out to be 2 times the number of edges. Now some simple graphs one can imagine. If you have something like this, that you start, keep moving and come back to its place, we'll call it a cycle. It's quite clear why we are calling it cycle. If there are n vertices, we'll call it P sub n. So it's a cycle graph on n vertices, right? So this will be C3, right? This will be C4. We have 4 vertices. If you have a graph where every vertex is connected to every other vertex, then we'll call that a complete graph. So complete graph is a graph where every vertex is connected to every other vertex, and the symbol we'll use is K sub n. It may look a little odd why you are choosing letter K when you're calling it a complete graph. It's not only because we have already used this symbol C, also because in German complete and complex they are spelled using K, right? So we write complex as CO, but in German you write KO. So complete graph on n vertices will denote as K sub n. So yeah. I mean, just look, so this is a cycle, right? What is degree of this vertex? 2, 2, 2. So if you sum 6, right? How many edges are there? 3. If I have a graph which looks like this, right? And maybe have another graph which looks like this. Are they same or they're different? Well, it turns out that in graph theory, we do not get emotionally attached to the visual representation, right? And so we use a notion of isomorphism. Two graphs, G and H, are called isomorphic if there exists a bijective map. So what do we mean by a bijective map? It is both one-to-one and onto, or if you prefer the word injective and surjective, it is both injective as well as surjective. So one-to-one correspondence, if you prefer that. So two graphs, G and H, will be called isomorphic if there is a one-to-one correspondence between their vertices in such a way that if two vertices in G are adjacent to each other, so if there is an edge between two vertices in G, then their corresponding images in H should have an edge between them. Right? If that's the case, then you will say they are isomorphic.